Trash like you doesn't deserve to touch this dress. Clarissa Lockhart's shrill voice cracked through the golden air of the ballroom like a whip. Heads turned toward the commotion near the central display, an antique glass case containing a diamond-studded gown donated for auction. The gown shimmered under the chandeliers, a heritage piece, as the MC had proudly called it. Moments earlier, Maya Williams had been doing exactly what she was hired to do: serve champagne, clear empty glasses, and make sure guests didn't handle the auction items. When Clarissa, in her glittering silver gown, leaned across the display with her cocktail in hand, Maya stepped forward politely. "Excuse me, ma'am," Maya said softly, maintaining her professional smile. "Please don't touch the exhibit. It belongs to the hotel's private collection." Clarissa turned, her eyes narrowing, her painted lips parted in disbelief. "Did you just tell me not to touch something I donated?" Maya kept her tone calm. "It's hotel property until the auction, ma'am. I'm only following protocol." A few nearby guests glanced over. Clarissa's face flushed not from embarrassment, but fury. How dare a black waitress, wearing a name tag and a borrowed smile, correct her in public? She stepped closer, the scent of her perfume, something French, expensive, and sharp, wrapped around Maya like a trap. "You people and your rules," she hissed. "Always pretending you belong somewhere you don't." Maya didn't flinch. "I'm just trying to protect the collection, ma'am." That sentence, simple as it was, planted a seed of resentment that would grow roots before the night was over. Minutes later, as Maya carried a tray of glasses through the crowd, Clarissa's stilettos clicked behind her like a warning. Without warning, Clarissa extended one perfectly manicured leg just enough to hook Maya's foot. Maya stumbled forward. The tray flew. Crystal shattered. Champagne rained over Clarissa's silver dress. A collective gasp rippled through the ballroom. "Oh my God," Clarissa exclaimed, stepping back dramatically. "She did it on purpose." Maya's heart thudded. "No, ma'am, please, it was an accident, you tripped." But before she could finish, Clarissa lunged. Her hand gripped Maya's shoulder and ripped the seam of her uniform straight down. The sound tore through the silence like paper splitting under pressure. "Trash like you doesn't deserve to touch this dress," Clarissa screamed again, clutching her torn gown with one hand while pointing at Maya with the other. The crowd froze. Then came the clicking of cameras, the murmurs, the widening eyes. Maya backed away, her breathing shallow. "Ma'am, please, I didn't." "Don't you dare talk to me," Clarissa shrieked. "You humiliated me, you pushed me, you ruined my gown." And then she saw him. Graham Lockhart, Clarissa's husband, cut through the crowd with a mixture of confusion and anger. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a graying beard, and a presence that quieted rooms. His expression hardened at the sight of his wife clutching her chest, her dress wet with champagne, the server standing before her with torn fabric. "Clarissa, what happened?" he demanded. "She attacked me," Clarissa cried, voice trembling. "She told me I had no right to touch my own donation, then she shoved me." "That's not true," Maya blurted, shaking her head. "Sir, she tripped me and—" "Enough," Graham's voice cracked like thunder. "How dare you raise your voice to her after what you've done?" The sting of injustice burned worse than the tear in Maya's uniform. "Please, sir, I didn't. She tripped me first. I was just—" But Graham wasn't listening. Not yet. His hand rested protectively on Clarissa's back as she pretended to steady herself, eyes fluttering shut like a wounded actress on cue. "Security," he called out sharply. "Escort this woman out. We'll handle it later." A pair of uniformed guards stepped forward. Maya's mouth went dry. "Sir, please, I didn't hurt anyone." "Out," Graham repeated, his tone final. His eyes, once warm in every newspaper photo, were cold steel now. Clarissa leaned into him, murmuring loud enough for the nearest guests to hear. "I told her not to touch me, but she wouldn't listen." The lie slithered across the floor between them, invisible but suffocating. Maya wanted to scream, but she knew better. A black woman shouting in a ballroom full of powerful white donors was an image she'd seen too many times in her research papers, and every time, the outcome was the same. She swallowed hard and nodded to the guards. "I'll leave." "Lou." As they led her away, she caught one last glimpse of Clarissa's triumphant smirk. The socialite turned in Graham's arms, whispering softly, "She frightened me, darling." She was so aggressive. Maya's stomach churned. Aggressive. The word every black woman knew too well, sharp as glass, dull as habit. Down the hallway, away from the murmuring guests, Maya's hands shook. The adrenaline buzzed under her skin. She touched the small recorder hidden inside her apron pocket. She hadn't meant to use it tonight, it was just for notes for her doctoral thesis, but it was running. Every insult, every false accusation, every tear Clarissa had faked. 20 minutes ago, she'd simply been another server trying to finish a shift and pay for her brother's hospital bills. Now, she was the villain in a billionaire's story. She pressed her back against the wall of the service corridor and closed her eyes. She could still hear Graham's voice. "How dare you raise your voice to her," echoing in her mind, heavy as guilt that didn't belong to her. The sound of approaching heels pulled her from her thoughts. Lydia, the senior floor captain, approached slowly, glancing over her shoulder before speaking. "I saw, honey. I saw what she did." Maya blinked back tears. "Then why didn't anyone say anything?" Lydia sighed. "People like her don't need truth. They buy silence." Maya exhaled, her breath trembling but steady. "Not forever." Lydia gave her a long, searching look. "What are you going to do?" Maya slipped the recorder into her purse, its red light blinking faintly. "I'm going to let her think she's won." Back in the ballroom, Clarissa sat fanning herself dramatically while Graham comforted her. Around them, guests murmured in sympathy. Clarissa's performance was perfect, fragile but dignified, wronged but noble. Only Graham's eyes betrayed unease. He kept glancing toward the corridor where Maya had disappeared, as if something inside him refused to settle. He had seen her face when she spoke, steady, composed. "Wait, before we continue, if this story touched your heart, please hit subscribe. It truly encourages us to bring you more powerful stories. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to know our amazing viewers around the world." Almost defiant, it didn't match the story his wife was spinning. For a man who'd built empires by recognizing patterns, this one didn't add up. And patterns that don't fit demand closer inspection. If you feel for Maya, hit like, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. You might just find someone near you watching this same moment. Graham Lockhart stood motionless near the edge of the ballroom, his arm still draped around Clarissa's shoulder. The soft chatter of guests resumed, gradually shifting from shock to shallow gossip. Champagne glasses clinked again. The illusion of normalcy was reassembling itself. But Graham wasn't listening to any of it. His eyes were fixed on the hallway where Maya Williams had disappeared. Something didn't sit right. Clarissa's version of events, the stumble, the aggression, the torn dress fit together a little too perfectly, like a performance rehearsed and performed on cue. And yet, he'd barked at the young woman without hesitation, driven by the same instinct that made him decisive in boardrooms and courtrooms. But what if this time, instinct had failed him? He looked down at Clarissa, who was now dabbing her eyes with a linen napkin, tears suspiciously absent. Her lips trembled, but her eyes, they were scanning the room, checking reactions, measuring sympathy. He knew that look. Clarissa had always been gifted at orchestrating narratives, especially the ones that painted her as the misunderstood socialite. When she caught him watching her, she immediately leaned into him and whispered, "She was unstable, Graham. I was scared she might strike me again." "Again?" His jaw tensed. "You said she shoved you." Clarissa hesitated. "Yes. Well, it happened quickly. Maybe she tripped and then lashed out. You saw the way she looked at me." He didn't reply. He'd seen her look, yes, but it wasn't rage or guilt. It was something else. Restraint. Clarissa pulled back slightly. "Don't tell me you're feeling sorry for her, after what she did to me." Graham stared across the room at the shattered glass, still glistening on the marble floor. Two servers were quietly cleaning it up under the guidance of Lydia, the floor captain. He recognized her sharp, competent, discreet. She'd worked nearly every Lockhart Foundation gala for the past 10 years. She was now whispering to another server, then glanced subtly in his direction before vanishing down the same hallway Maya had taken. That, too, caught his attention. Clarissa spoke again, voice slightly shrill. "Are you even listening to me?" "No," Graham said quietly. Then louder, "I'll be right back." Clarissa blinked. "Where are you going?" He didn't answer. He moved swiftly, his dress shoes tapping on the marble, past clusters of attendees, past the quartet resuming a Vivaldi piece, and into the hallway. The lighting changed instantly from the warm glow of the ballroom to the sterile fluorescence of the service corridor. The laughter and string music faded behind him like a closed curtain. He walked past a row of storage closets until he heard voices low, urgent. "I saw what she did," Lydia was saying. "You didn't push her. You didn't raise a hand. That woman tripped you and tore your uniform like she was ripping paper." Graham turned the corner just as Maya responded, her voice steady. "It won't matter. Not right away." People saw what they wanted to see. She hadn't noticed him yet. Lydia, however, did. She stiffened, eyes narrowing. Maya followed her gaze and froze. Their eyes met again, but this time, the recognition was different. No longer adversarial. No longer unequal. Graham took a breath, suddenly aware of how sharp the silence had become. "Miss Williams," he began, his voice formal. "I need to speak with you." Lydia stepped protectively forward. "She's done nothing wrong, Mr. Lockhart." "I believe you," he said, surprising them both. Maya raised an eyebrow. "Is that why you yelled at me in front of 200 people without asking a single question?" Graham winced. "You're right. I reacted poorly. My wife was a better actress than you gave her credit for," Maya finished flatly. He hesitated, then nodded. "Yes." Maya crossed her arms, torn uniform still hanging awkwardly. "So what now? Am I supposed to thank you for reconsidering?" "No," he said carefully. "You don't owe me anything, but I need to ask you something." He paused. "Do you have anything that proves what happened?" She considered him for a long beat. Her hand reached into her apron pocket, and for a moment he thought she might hand him something. Instead, she pulled out a small recorder, red light blinking. "You were recording?" "I always record," Maya said. "Part of my doctoral fieldwork. You'd be amazed what people say when they think you're invisible." Graham stepped closer. "You're a PhD student?" "Stanford. Sociology. Thesis. Racialized microaggressions in elite professional spaces." Graham blinked. "That's extremely specific." "Oh." Maya's smile was bitter. "It wasn't supposed to be personal, but life has a way of handing you first-hand data." Lydia chuckled under her breath. Graham looked at both women, his wife's version of the evening crumbling faster than champagne bubbles. "I'd like to hear the recording," he said. Maya shook her head. "Not here. Not tonight." "Tomorrow?" he asked. "Why?" she challenged. "So you can convince me to keep it quiet?" Graham's jaw tightened. "Because I made a mistake, and I'm not going to compound it by pretending it didn't happen." She studied him again, searching for the patronizing tone, the subtle condescension. It wasn't there. He didn't look like a man trying to cover his tracks. He looked like a man who had realized maybe for the first time that silence was complicity. She reached into her bag, pulled out a business card, and handed it to him. "Text me afternoon. I'll decide by then." He took it with a nod. As Maya and Lydia turned to leave, Graham stayed behind in the hallway, the card heavy in his hand. Back in the ballroom, Clarissa was basking in the fading glow of pity. Her performance had reached its crescendo, but she didn't realize the curtain had already begun to fall. Tomorrow, Maya Williams would decide how the next act would begin. The next afternoon, sunlight poured over the glass walls of a quiet cafe in Pacific Heights, warming the floorboards and catching on the edges of polished cutlery. It was the kind of place where no one raised their voices and everyone knew each other by their coffee order. Graham Lockhart sat in the back corner, dressed down in a charcoal sweater and pressed jeans. A cappuccino cooled beside him, untouched. His phone buzzed once. Unknown number. "Arriving in 5. I won't stay long." W. He exhaled, half relief, half apprehension. He hadn't stopped thinking about her face, not the humiliation she endured, but the composure she maintained through it. The restraint. He'd replayed the scene dozens of times since last night, and each time, his wife's version made less sense. His gut had screamed at him in the moment. He'd ignored it. He wouldn't make that mistake again. When Maya Williams entered, she didn't glance around or pause. She moved straight toward him, in a crisp black coat, her hair tied back in a low bun, her steps precise. She carried herself like someone who knew people would doubt her but had prepared for that her whole life. "Mr. Lockhart," she said evenly. "Please, Graham," he replied, rising from his seat. "Thank you for coming. I haven't decided what I'll do yet." she warned as she sat down. Let's get that clear. Understood. She placed a small flash drive on the table and tapped it once. This has the full audio. 23 minutes, starting from when she accused me of touching the gown to the moment your security escorted me out. He stared at the flash drive, a plain plastic object that could unravel decades of social capital and manufactured virtue. You've listened to it? He asked. Of course. Several times. I didn't want to believe people like your wife still existed in rooms like that. She gave a dry smile. But I study systems, not fantasies. Graham reached for the flash drive but stopped just short. And what are you expecting me to do with this? That depends, she said. Is this a man who wants to do what's right, or a husband looking to protect his wife's reputation? That question stung more than it should have. Because the truth was, for most of his marriage, he had been the latter. Graham had protected Clarissa from the media, from scandal, from herself, the way wealthy men were trained to do for their image-perfect wives. But last night hadn't been scandal. It had been character revealed. I'm not protecting anyone, he said finally. Not anymore. She studied him carefully, as if still reserving judgment. Then she pulled a small notebook from her bag. If this stays private, I'll consider using it as case study material in my dissertation. Names redacted. But if she tries to go public, if she sues me or twists this in the media, I release it. No. Graham nodded slowly. That's fair. But, Maya continued, I'm not here just to protect myself. I've read about Lockhart Group. I know you've been under pressure for lack of diversity at the senior level. I also know your board is made up of men who look exactly like you. He raised an eyebrow. You've done your homework. She tilted her head. You have a problem, Mr. Lockhart. And I have a solution. He smiled faintly, not out of amusement, but respect. Go on. I want to come in as an independent consultant. One project, limited engagement. I'll audit your hiring practices, review internal messaging, and conduct interviews anonymously. I'll give you a report. Honest, thorough, unfiltered. He leaned back in his chair. You'd work with my company after what happened? I'd work because of what happened, she said sharply. What your wife did is personal. But the culture that enabled her to get away with it? That's systemic. That's what I study. That's what I fight. Graham nodded slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. You'd be paid standard consultant rates, with autonomy and confidentiality, she added. You don't see my drafts until I send you the final report. He extended his hand across the table. Deal. She shook it firmly. No hesitation. For a moment, there was silence between them, not tense, not awkward, but reflective. Then she leaned forward, her voice softer. Do you know how many women like me are pushed out of rooms like that every day? How many just stay quiet to survive? Yes, he said, and I also know I've been complicit. Maya didn't nod. She didn't absolve him, but she didn't walk out either. She stood, slipping the notebook and flash drive back into her coat pocket. You'll hear from me by Friday. I'll need access to your HR leads, employee directories, and any DEI materials you currently use. He stood as well. My assistant will arrange it. Maya, thank you. Don't thank me yet, she said, pausing at the door. If I do my job right, it's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. He watched her leave, the cafe door swinging shut behind her with a soft click. Graham sat back down, exhaling slowly. Something had begun. Something big. Back at the Lockhart estate that evening, Clarissa poured herself a glass of wine, dressed in silk loungewear. Scrolling through online articles, most recaps of the gala had cropped out the drama, focusing instead on auction figures and guest appearances. The gossip hadn't exploded, yet. She smirked to herself. The girl had left quietly. Maybe it was over. Then Graham walked in, briefcase in hand. We need to talk. Clarissa smiled sweetly. About? Her name is Maya Williams, he said, setting his phone on the table. She's a PhD candidate, and she recorded the entire night. Clarissa's face drained of color. I'm bringing her in, he added. She'll be auditing the company's internal culture. You're hiring her? She gasped. No, he said. I'm listening to her. The next morning, the Lockhart mansion was unusually quiet. The housekeepers tiptoed through the marble halls, aware that the air between the couple at the breakfast table was heavy and fragile, like porcelain balanced on the edge of a counter. Clarissa sat in her silk robe, sunglasses perched on her head though no sunlight reached the dining room. The clink of her spoon against the porcelain bowl was the only sound. Graham, across from her, flipped through the financial section of the San Francisco Chronicle, though his eyes barely registered the words. The silence stretched long enough for her to break it. "You're still angry." He folded the paper neatly and set it aside. "I'm not angry," he said evenly. "I'm just reassessing." Clarissa gave a brittle laugh. "That's a charming word for betrayal." "Betrayal?" he repeated, incredulous. "Clarissa, you humiliated a woman in front of 200 people. You tripped her, ripped her uniform, accused her of assault, and now you're the one feeling betrayed?" Her spoon clattered into the bowl. "You weren't there at the beginning, Graham. You didn't see how she spoke to me, so smug, so superior. If you're still here and enjoying the story, we'd love your support. Take a second to hit subscribe. It really means a lot." She told me not to touch the gown. Like I was some child. "Oh." He leaned back in his chair, studying her face carefully. "She was protecting property that didn't belong to you yet, doing her job. And you chose to humiliate her for it." Clarissa crossed her arms, her jaw tightening. "Oh, come on. This is you feeling guilty again. Always siding with the underdog because it makes you feel noble. You don't know these people like I do, Graham. They're opportunists. They wait for one mistake to play the victim card." He stared at her a long time. "Justice isn't about who cries louder, Clarissa. It's about what the truth sounds like." Her lips parted, but no words came. She reached for her wine glass. Yes, wine. At 9 in the morning. And took a slow sip. "So what now?" she asked finally. "You're going to let this waitress blackmail us?" He looked out the window toward the manicured gardens, the fog rolling over the hills of Pacific Heights. "She's not blackmailing us. She's giving us an opportunity to fix what's broken." Clarissa scoffed. "You can't be serious." "I am," he said. "I met with her yesterday." The glass froze halfway to her lips. "You what?" "She's not just a waitress," Graham continued calmly. "She's a doctoral researcher at Stanford. She specializes in analyzing workplace discrimination. She's consulting with us temporarily." Clarissa's eyes widened. "You invited her into our company? After what she did to me?" "What she did to you," he repeated softly, "was record you exposing who you really are." She slammed the glass down, the stem cracking. "You're turning on me over her. Over some random girl who doesn't even belong in our world." Graham's voice dropped to a near whisper. "You're right about one thing, she doesn't belong in our world. Because our world, Clarissa, rewards cruelty and calls it confidence." "No." Clarissa stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the marble. "You're being dramatic." He rose too, calm but unwavering. "Dramatic is pretending to faint in a ballroom after assaulting someone and lying about it." She glared at him, her painted face hardening like porcelain. "You think hiring her will make you the hero? Wait until people find out you're cozying up to the woman who tried to destroy your wife." "She didn't destroy you," he said coldly. "You did that yourself." "Nah." For a long moment, they stared at each other, the decades of tension between them, condensing into a single, suffocating silence. Then he stepped aside, gesturing toward the hallway. "Go ahead, tell the press your version. I won't stop you. But before you do, listen to the recording." He slid a small flash drive across the table, the same one Maya had given him. Clarissa hesitated, her anger flickering with something else now. Fear. "I've already heard it," he said. "Every word, every insult, every lie. You can't spin it, Clarissa. Not this time." She didn't touch the drive. Instead, she straightened her robe and walked toward the staircase, her chin lifted high. "You'll regret humiliating me like this." He didn't answer. When she was gone, Graham sank back into his chair. The smell of coffee had gone bitter. He reached for his phone, scrolled to the last text message from Maya. "Maya Williams. Meeting your HR director tomorrow. Need access to internal communications archive." He typed a short reply. "Approved. You'll have everything by noon." For the rest of the morning, he sat alone in the silent dining room, staring at the untouched paper. His reflection in the window looked older than he remembered, lined not with time, but truth. At that same moment, across town, Maya sat at her small kitchen table with her laptop open. The glow from the screen illuminated stacks of printed reports, sticky notes, and half-drunk coffee. Her brother Marcus shuffled into the room, still in his pajamas. "Long night?" he asked. "Long life," she murmured, eyes not leaving the screen. "You remember that gala job I took?" He grimaced. "The fancy one with the donors?" "Yeah. Turns out one of the donors' wives is the kind of woman I write papers about." He frowned. "That bad?" "She tripped me, ripped my dress, lied to her husband, and called security." He whistled low. "Damn, sis." Maya finally smiled faintly. "Yeah, but this time she picked the wrong waitress. She saved the file she was working on, an outline titled Lockhart Group, Preliminary Audit on Discriminatory Practices. She'd start small. Employee interviews, internal emails, patterns in hiring. Nothing sensational, just data, because data, when handled correctly, could pierce through lies sharper than any public scandal. She leaned back, the morning sun creeping over the edge of her blinds. For the first time in weeks, she felt purpose, not revenge, but direction. Across the bay, Graham closed his eyes for a long moment, hearing Maya's words echo in his mind. "It's not personal, it's systemic," he whispered to the empty room. "Then let's fix the system." Tuesday, 10:04 a.m. Lockhart Group Headquarters, 27th floor, Executive Wing. Maya stepped out of the elevator with a leather tote on her shoulder and a clipboard in her hand. The glass walls around her reflected a polished world of power, men in tailored suits, women in tasteful neutrals, all moving quickly, speaking softly. The kind of office where the air always smelled like money, espresso, and ambition. She knew this kind of space. She'd studied them, dissected them, written entire chapters about them. But today, for the first time, she was inside not as a subject, but as a disruptor. A middle-aged assistant named Colleen met her at the reception desk. "Miss Williams?" "I'm Colleen Blackwell, HR Chief's admin. Mr. Lockhart said you'd be arriving." Maya smiled. "Thank you, Colleen." The woman returned the smile warmly, but her eyes were watchful. Maya could see the questions lingering behind them. Who was this woman that the CEO personally ushered in? Why was HR told to cooperate without limits? Colleen led her down a corridor lined with framed photos, founding moments of Lockhart Group, stock exchange bell ringings, tech expos, all white, all male, all triumphant. "Your office will be here," Colleen said, opening a glass door to a compact but comfortable conference room. "Everything you requested has been loaded onto the drive." She tapped a small encrypted tablet waiting on the table. Employee policies, internal messaging archives, onboarding materials, anonymized feedback reports. "Excellent," Maya replied. "Any pushback from senior staff?" Colleen hesitated. "Not officially." Maya smiled. "Noted." As the door closed behind her, Maya took a slow breath and opened her laptop. The title of her audit appeared on the screen. Lockhart Group, Internal Culture Diagnostic Report. Phase 1, Listening Without Interruption. The first phase was always the same. Listen before judging. Systems rarely changed from confrontation, they evolved from discomfort. So she scrolled through the staff directory and began scheduling one-on-one interviews with employees across all departments, entry-level, mid-management, senior staff. The goal was to locate patterns, not people. Within 2 hours, she had 30 meetings booked. At 1 p.m., the first one arrived, a young man from the design team named Ellis Monroe, white, late 20s, Ivy League graduate. Nervous, despite trying not to show it. "You don't work here, right?" he asked, settling into the seat across from her. "I'm an external auditor," Maya explained. "Mr. Lockhart brought me in to do a cultural assessment. Everything you say is anonymous. I'm not here to get anyone in trouble." "Ugh," he nodded, though his shoulders remained tense. "I just look. I like it here. I do. But I guess you want the real stuff." "I want the truth," she said softly. "The kind people only whisper." He exhaled. "Okay, well, for starters, there's kind of this code. You get ahead by fitting in. talking like them, dressing like them. If you don't, they say you're not a good culture fit. But no one ever defines what that culture actually is. Maya nodded slowly. And who's them? He paused. The partners, board members. They all went to the same 5 schools, belong to the same clubs. They all play golf. You know, I do. Last year, Ellis continued, a black woman was hired into our strategy team, Harper James. She had this incredible resume. Yale undergrad, Wharton MBA. But she left after 6 months. Said it wasn't a good fit. But everyone knew. She was shut out of everything. No mentorship, no invites. Just polite exclusion. Maya jotted it down. Harper James, another ghost in the machine. Thank you, Ellis. That's exactly what I need. After he left, Maya stared at the name on her notepad. She remembered Harper, brilliant, sharp-eyed, sat 2 rows behind her at a DEI symposium last spring. So it wasn't just Clarissa. This company had been bleeding talent quietly for years. By 3 p.m., Maya had heard variations of the same story. Hushed racism, aggressive politeness, double standards, code switching, invisible walls. One older woman from accounting said quietly, "They don't call you a diversity hire anymore. Now they just ask if you're here through a pipeline program." That's their new whisper insult. A Latina woman in operations confessed, "I stopped wearing hoops to work because a director asked if I was going to a quinceañera. I laughed it off, but I never wore them again." Maya nodded, letting them speak, offering no judgment. That wasn't her role yet. At 5:45 p.m., her last meeting walked in. It was Lydia. Maya blinked, surprised but glad. "You work in corporate too?" Lydia grinned. "Nah, I just came to see how you were holding up." She set down 2 coffees. "Decaf for you? Still shaking from last night?" Maya let out a half laugh. "I think I'm still suspended in it." Lydia leaned back. "You've got them rattled, kid. Word's getting around. People are whispering about the new girl with the clipboard. Some are nervous. Some are hopeful. That's how change starts," Maya said. "With whispers." Lydia gave her a long look. "That woman, Clarissa, she's not done with you." "I know. She's dangerous when cornered." Maya's eyes darkened, but her tone remained even. "So am I." Back in his office, Graham sat alone, watching the sun dip behind the Bay Bridge. He hadn't heard from Clarissa all day, which meant one of 2 things: either she was plotting or pretending. He opened his inbox and saw an internal email Maya had forwarded from HR. Subject, Diversity Audit Access. Body, per the CEO's directive, please grant Miss Williams full access to cultural survey history and leadership performance reviews. G. Lockhart. He reread it twice. Then he hit reply. Let her dig deep. Whatever she finds, we face it. That night, Maya walked out of the building into the crisp autumn air. A group of employees passed her on the sidewalk. One woman gave her a subtle nod. A man whispered, "You're doing good work." No, the whispers were growing louder. And Maya Williams? She wasn't going anywhere. Wednesday, 9:03 m. Clarissa Lockhart sat in front of her custom vanity, a row of gold-capped serums and imported brushes neatly arranged like soldiers prepared for battle. Her makeup was flawless, her hair styled in the sleek chignon she reserved for crisis control. In front of her, the small silver flash drive Graham had left the day before sat untouched. She stared at it like it was ticking. For the past 12 hours, she had convinced herself it was exaggerated. That Maya must have tampered with it. Edited the audio. Distorted the truth. After all, hadn't Graham said she was a graduate student? Tech-savvy types could manipulate anything. Clarissa didn't trust women like Maya, too clever, too composed, always playing the long game. But a part of her deep, quiet, and inconvenient remembered the look in Maya's eyes that night. That wasn't the face of someone caught in a lie. That was a woman who knew exactly what she was holding back. Clarissa reached out with trembling fingers and plugged the drive into her laptop. She clicked the first file, and there it was. Her own voice. Clear, sharp, unmistakably cruel. "Trash like you doesn't deserve to touch this dress." Then the scuffle, the clatter of glasses, the sound of fabric tearing, and Maya's calm voice. "Ma'am, please, I didn't. Don't you dare talk to me." Clarissa's blood ran cold. She clicked pause. It wasn't distorted. It wasn't edited. It was her. All of it. She slammed the laptop shut and sat back, chest heaving. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. The tone, the entitlement, the way her voice twisted into a sneer without her even realizing it. It was like hearing a version of herself she never wanted to admit existed. And worst of all, Graham had heard it too. Downstairs, her phone buzzed. "Margaret Wellington. Brunch today? 11 sharp. Pacific Club. Don't bring drama, darling." Clarissa picked up the phone with unsteady fingers and typed, "Be there." She needed to do damage control. Fast. 11:04 a.m. Pacific Club. Margaret Wellington sat perched like a hawk over her cucumber toast, sunglasses too large for indoors, her hair set in that signature politician's wife stiffness. Clarissa slid into the booth across from her. "Well," Margaret said without preamble, "you've made headlines without actually being in the news. That's a rare talent." Clarissa rolled her eyes. "I'm not in the mood." "You're never in the mood when you're not the center of attention." Clarissa lowered her voice. "You think I don't know what people are saying? They're whispering. They think she's the victim." Margaret raised an eyebrow. "Clarissa, she is the victim." Clarissa blinked. "Excuse me?" "Darling, you tripped her. In front of half the donor list. Then tore her uniform. You didn't just cross the line, you danced over it in Louboutin." Clarissa's mouth opened, closed. "You're supposed to be my friend. I am your friend. That's why I'm telling you the truth. The old rules don't apply anymore. You can't just humiliate someone publicly and expect people to forget by Monday." Clarissa's jaw clenched. "She's manipulating this. She's not some helpless little thing, she's smart, calculated." "That's exactly the problem," Margaret replied. "You underestimated her, and now she's working inside your husband's company." Clarissa stiffened. "I'll fix it." Margaret leaned back. "No, you won't. Because this time, people are watching. And if you try to smear her, you'll look worse." Clarissa stirred her coffee without drinking it. "So what? I just sit back and let her ruin everything?" "Or," Margaret said delicately, "you get ahead of the narrative." Clarissa's eyes narrowed. "Meaning?" "Apologize. Publicly. Tearfully. Say you're seeking help. That you're reflecting. That you were under stress. I'm not humiliating myself for that woman." "You're not doing it for her," Margaret replied coolly. "You're doing it for you. For your place at every table that matters." Clarissa looked out the window, jaw tight. Outside, the streets of Pacific Heights bustled with polished lives, clean reputations. She used to move among them effortlessly. Now, every glance felt like suspicion. Every silence felt like judgment. She stirred the coffee again. "I'll think about it." Across the city, Maya was finishing her fourth staff interview of the day inside a small HR meeting room. This time, it was one of the senior engineers, a man in his mid-50s, white, retired Navy, now leading a product development team. "You're not going to like this," he said as he leaned back, arms crossed. "But I don't think Lockhart has a diversity problem." Maya nodded. "Go on. We hire based on merit here. We don't look at skin color. We just want the best people." She smiled gently. "And what does best look like?" He frowned. "Competent, reliable, good fit." Maya jotted it down. "And in your 10 years here, how many black women have been promoted to leadership?" He paused. "I don't have that data." "I do," she said. 0. The man shifted in his seat. "Well, it's not because we're excluding anyone." "Of course not," Maya said smoothly. "That's the beauty of unconscious bias. It doesn't feel like exclusion. It just looks like repetition." He didn't respond. After he left, Maya stared at the nameplate on the door. Room 3B. Mediation. It fit. She wasn't just an investigator. She was a mirror. And most people didn't like what they saw reflected. She checked her phone. A message from Graham. "Graham Lockhart." Clarissa listened to the recording. "I don't know what she'll do next, but she knows she's exposed." Maya stared at the screen, then typed, "Maya Williams." She was always exposed. She just didn't know anyone was watching. She closed her laptop, stood, and walked to the window. The city spread out before her, noisy, messy, alive, and somewhere inside it, a storm was forming. Thursday, 7:22 a.m. Clarissa Lockhart's phone buzzed insistently on the marble nightstand, interrupting her fifth attempt at sleep. She had tossed and turned all night, the echo of her own voice from the recording looping through her head like a curse. The coffee she drank to suppress it only fed her anxiety. She reached for the phone and answered without checking the caller ID. Clarissa Lockhart. Mrs. Lockhart, this is Jenna from Public Relations, came the chipper voice. We received a media inquiry this morning from the Bay Sentinel. A reporter is asking for comment about an incident involving a waitress at your foundation gala. They said there's audio. Clarissa shot upright in bed, pulse racing. Who gave them that? They wouldn't say. Just asked if the Lockhart Foundation would like to release a statement before publication. Clarissa swung her legs out of bed. Tell them no comment. Absolutely no comment. Yes, ma'am. She hung up and immediately called Graham. He answered on the first ring. I told you this would happen, she barked. She leaked the audio. Graham, still in his car en route to the office, remained calm. Maya didn't leak anything. She gave me her word. And unlike you, she honors it. Clarissa let out a sharp laugh. So now she's Saint Maya of Stanford? No, he said, but she's the only person in this mess behaving with any integrity. She was silent for a long beat. If this story runs, I'll be humiliated. Graham's voice hardened. You humiliated yourself, and unless you start owning it, Clarissa, you're going to lose more than your social standing. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm not covering for you anymore. He hung up. Clarissa stared at the blank screen. Her reflection glared back at her. For the first time in her life, her beauty felt irrelevant. 8:11 a.m., Lockhart Group HQ. Maya walked briskly through the lobby, nodding at the receptionist, who gave her a warm smile. Word had spread. The energy in the building had shifted from suspicious to cautious respect. People stepped aside when she passed. Some nodded. A few, especially women of color, whispered quiet encouragements when no one was watching. As she entered the elevator, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. You think you're smart, don't you? No name, no image. She didn't reply. Just deleted it. Second text followed. Unknown number. Everyone will see you for what you are. She stared at it for a long moment, then blocked the number. Maya had spent her whole adult life knowing what power looked like when it wore civility like a mask. But behind closed doors, it always showed its teeth. She stepped off the elevator and entered the HR suite, where Graham was already waiting. You heard? He asked. Bay Sentinel? He nodded. They're threatening to run with the story, unless we respond by noon. I didn't leak it, she said plainly. I know, I believe you. She sat across from him. So, what's your move? Graham ran a hand through his hair. If we deny it, they'll run it anyway. If we acknowledge it, they'll dig deeper. If we stay silent, we look guilty. Maya leaned forward. There's another option. He raised an eyebrow. You take control of the story, she said. Not just the gala, everything. The culture, the failures, the fact that you're changing it. He laughed once, dry and low. So you want me to go public with all our dirt? Not dirt, truth, she replied. Controlled transparency. Show you're not afraid to confront your own company's flaws. He studied her. You think that'll work? She smiled. In my experience, the public doesn't punish mistakes. It punishes cover-ups. Graham nodded slowly. I want you at that press conference. I'm not a spokesperson. You're not. You're the reason we're changing. Later that day, the Bay Sentinel released a teaser headline online. Breaking. Lockhart Foundation Gala Scandal. Allegations of assault and racism surface. No audio. No quotes. Just the bait. Maya stood in the wings of the press room, listening to Graham speak under the bright lights. Cameras flashed. Reporters held up recorders and scribbled in notebooks. We're not here to hide from what happened, Graham said clearly. We're here because it's time to fix what we allowed to fester. Maya watched the audience shift in their seats, surprised by the candor. Yes, there was an incident at the gala, and yes, we mishandled it. Heads turned, pens scribbled faster. He continued. We have since retained the services of Maya Williams, a doctoral researcher and equity consultant, to audit and overhaul our internal culture. She is here not to protect us, but to challenge us. Maya blinked. That hadn't been in the script. Graham gestured toward her. Miss Williams, would you care to say a few words? Every head turned. She stepped forward slowly, heart pounding, clipboard in hand. She hadn't prepared to speak. But now, every eye in the room was waiting. I didn't come here to expose anyone, she began. I came because someone tried to silence me. And I realized this wasn't just about me. This was about a culture that says people like me are lucky to be in the room instead of belonging there. She paused. No one moved. We can't fix what we don't face. And today, we're facing it. Applause broke out, quiet at first, then steady. Graham looked at her with something like pride. Clarissa watched it all from her phone screen at home, wineglass in hand. She hadn't known about the press conference. She hadn't been invited. The applause made her stomach turn. But it wasn't jealousy. It was fear. She was no longer the voice of the Lockhart name. And Maya Williams? She had just taken the stage. Friday, 6:32 a.m. The buzz didn't stop overnight. By dawn, Maya's phone had over 50 new emails, 2 interview requests, and a direct message from someone at the New York Times. She sat at her tiny kitchen table, barefoot, coffee in hand, scrolling through the headlines. Consultant Maya Williams steals the spotlight at Lockhart press conference. Waitress turned whistleblower speaks truth to power. Maya Williams, the name everyone in corporate America needs to know. She stared at her name in bold print. Not Maid, not waitress. Her name. Maya, her brother Marcus called from the doorway, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Are you trending? God help us, she muttered. Yes. He shuffled over and looked at her screen. You've got people quoting your speech. There's even a Reddit thread titled Hire Maya Williams or Regret It. She sighed. I didn't do it for fame. I know, Marcus said, his tone soft. But you did it with your name. And that's what people needed. She looked at him. Her baby brother. The one who got suspended in 10th grade for standing up to a teacher who called his hoodie intimidating. He'd been told to blend in since he was 5. Maybe this was why she'd done it for the kids who'd been told not to take up space. 8:17 a.m., Lockhart Group. The energy in the building was electric. Employees gathered in groups near the elevators, talking in whispers and excited tones. A few printed Maya's quote and taped it to their cubicle walls. We can't fix what we don't face. Inside the executive boardroom, the atmosphere was more tense. 12 men and 1 woman, all partners, sat around a long glass table, waiting for Graham to speak. One cleared his throat. So, this is the direction we're taking now? Public apologies and diversity hires? Graham didn't flinch. No, we're taking accountability. And if that's offensive to you, you might be part of the problem. A few exchanged glances. One leaned forward. Graham, with all due respect, bringing this girl, this consultant, into our walls is dangerous. It sets precedent. It opens us to scrutiny, lawsuits. She's not the risk, Graham said. The culture we let fester is. And what about Clarissa? Another asked pointedly. If she goes public and claims this is all part of a personal vendetta? Graham met their gaze, eyes steady. She can speak her truth. But mine is this. We covered up too much for too long. I won't do it anymore. Silence followed. Then the only woman on the board spoke. I read Maya's audit outline. It's sharp, focused, professional. I support the direction. Others followed with nods, slow but genuine. Let her continue, the chairman finally said. But keep it controlled. We don't need a revolution. Graham didn't reply. But inside, he knew this was a revolution. The kind that didn't burn buildings but rewired foundations. 2:04 p.m., HR interview room. Maya's 6th interview of the day was with an older black woman from facilities. Her name was Ruth Ann. 62, sharp as a whip, worked nights, wore orthopedic shoes and red lipstick every day like armor. I watched that press conference, baby, Ruth said, crossing her arms. Made me cry. Maya smiled. Thank you, Miss Ruth. But I've seen change promised before, she added. Seen white men say all the right things. Then nothing. Maya nodded. I'm not here to make promises. I'm here to make patterns visible. Ruth leaned in. Well, let me give you one. Every time a woman of color tries to speak up, they isolate her, quiet her, promote someone else right above her to mentor her into silence. Maya jotted that down. That's important. They'll smile in your face, Ruth said, then write you out of the next email chain. Maya looked up. Has it happened to you? Ruth gave a tired smile. Child, it's happened so many times I stopped counting. Silence hung between them for a moment, thick with generations of dismissal. Then Maya said quietly, they see your labor, Miss Ruth. They just don't see your light. No. Ruth blinked, surprised. Then she reached across the table and squeezed Maya's hand. You make them see it, baby. Maya smiled back. We will. 4:46 p.m. Lockhart Estate. Clarissa stood in front of the full-length mirror in her walk-in closet, wearing a power suit that once made her feel invincible. But today, it felt like armor that didn't fit anymore. The headlines wouldn't stop. Every publication, local, national, even fashion blogs were praising Maya's speech. Some called for Clarissa's resignation from the Lockhart Foundation board. Others had unearthed past incidents where she allegedly lost her temper at service staff. All brushed aside by PR spin. Now it was unraveling. She opened her laptop and played the press conference again. Watched Maya speak with clarity, conviction, and grace. Clarissa whispered to herself, how did this happen? She used to control the room. Now, she was the ghost in the story. And Maya? Maya was the name they remembered. 7:21 p.m. Back at Maya's apartment, Maya sat on the fire escape with her laptop in her lap, legs tucked under her. She was editing her report's first chapter, outlining the themes of exclusion, coded language, and false meritocracy. She stopped typing and stared at the skyline. Graham had sent her a note earlier. You're changing more than the company. You're changing me. She didn't reply, not because she doubted his sincerity, but because she wasn't here for one man's redemption. She was here for everyone still inside the walls with no voice. Her phone buzzed again this time, a notification from a private alumni group. Stanford Ethics Forum wants Maya Williams to speak at their fall symposium. She smiled, closed the laptop, and whispered to the city, this is just the beginning. Saturday, 10:15 a.m. Clarissa sat in the sunroom of her estate, surrounded by orchids she hadn't watered in years and people she didn't trust anymore. Across from her sat her lawyer, Alan Strauss, impeccably dressed, deeply connected, and, more importantly, ruthless. She's hijacked the narrative, Clarissa said, voice trembling more from fury than fear. My name is being dragged through the mud while she stands on a podium like some kind of saint. Alan didn't flinch. Your recording is indefensible. We can't disprove it. But we can change the story. She leaned forward. How? Simple, Alan said. We attack her credibility, quietly, make people ask questions, plant doubt. She's on a public pedestal now. One whisper, one crack, and she falls harder. Clarissa narrowed her eyes. What kind of crack? She's a graduate student, right? Let's see if she got in fairly. Financial records, past employment, even disciplinary reports. Find a weakness, an inconsistency, anything. ... Clarissa smiled slowly. Find it. Alan nodded and tapped his phone. It's already in motion. As he stood to leave, he paused. But Clarissa, if there's anything else I should know now is the time. She scoffed. She's not squeaky clean. No one is. Sunday, Onbir, Kirkikya, Mrs. Maya's apartment. Marcus stood in the hallway with Maya, holding a grocery bag in one hand and a letter in the other. This came to the building's mailroom. No return address. Maya took the envelope, opened it. Inside was a printed photo, blurry, clearly from an old phone, and a note. You left this behind? Thought we forgot? The photo was from 6 years ago. Maya, standing outside a student protest at her old university, holding a handmade sign that read, Silence protects the powerful. Below it, scrawled in Sharpie, expelled agitator. Not as perfect as they think. Maya stared at it, heart suddenly heavier. Marcus peered over her shoulder. They're trying to make you look like a threat. She nodded. Someone's digging. And they found just enough to raise eyebrows. You weren't expelled, he said. You left after they threatened your scholarship. Doesn't matter. In a smear campaign, the truth becomes a footnote. She folded the photo and tucked it into her notebook. They're scared. That's a good sign. Monday, 8:32 a.m. Lockhart Group. Graham entered the boardroom to find an emergency meeting already in session. A few partners looked tense, others impatient. One slid a tablet across the table to him. This is circulating on corporate forums. Some employee subreddits too. Graham picked it up. The headline read, "Who is Maya Williams really? Radical past raises questions about Lockhart's new consultant." The article was unsigned, littered with insinuations, accusations of disruptive campus activism, allegations that she once shouted down a tenured professor, quotes from anonymous former classmates. It was a hit piece, classic smear tactics. Graham didn't even blink. "This is cowardice," he said. "Someone's trying to discredit her because she's doing the job we asked her to." The chairman looked uncomfortable. "Graham, perception matters. If this spins out of control, shareholders might question your judgment." "They can question it," he replied coolly, "but the culture she's exposing is real, and this," he held up the tablet, "only proves her point." One of the younger partners asked, "Do you think Clarissa's behind it?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Monday, 9:45 a.m., Maya's temporary office. Maya opened her laptop to find her inbox flooded. Half were words of encouragement. The other half, not so kind. One read, "You tricked Lockhart into hiring a Marxist. Nice." Another, "You're not brave. You're dangerous." She closed the laptop and stared out the window. For a brief moment, the doubt crept in. Would this undo everything? A soft knock on the door interrupted her spiral. It was Lydia, holding 2 coffees. "Heard about the smear campaign. Figured you could use caffeine." Maya smiled faintly. "Thank you." Lydia handed her the cup and sat down. "You know what they're afraid of?" "What?" "That you're not yelling, you're not marching, you're not burning anything. You're just calmly telling the truth. And they can't handle that." Maya leaned back. "They're hoping I break. If I defend myself too loud, I look defensive. If I stay quiet, I look guilty. So what are you going to do?" Maya turned to her laptop and began typing. "I'm going to do what I always do." Lydia raised a brow. "Which is?" "Write it down, prove it, and let the truth speak louder than the noise." Monday, 5:12 p.m. Lockhart Foundation. Clarissa watched as her carefully placed story took hold. She refreshed the blog post's traffic page. Over 20,000 views in under 6 hours. She smiled. The old rules still worked. A well-timed seed of doubt could poison anything. But then her assistant poked her head in. "Mrs. Lockhart, there's something you should see." Clarissa turned to her second screen. The Lockhart Foundation's social media had just posted a new video. It was Maya, sitting at a simple desk, speaking directly into the camera. "Some of you have seen stories about my past. I want to be clear, I've never hidden where I came from. I've protested injustice. I've raised my voice. I've challenged institutions that wanted me to shrink, and I will not apologize for that." Clarissa's face hardened. Maya continued, "You can't scare someone into silence when silence was never an option for them to begin with. I'm not here to be perfect. I'm here to be honest. And honesty will always be louder than fear." The video ended. The comments exploded. "This woman is the real deal. We need more Mayas, fewer Clarissas. Maya Williams for CEO." Clarissa slammed the laptop shut. For the first time in her life, her usual weapon reputation had failed her. And Maya? Maya had just turned the smear into a spotlight. 8:23 p.m. Maya's apartment. Marcus placed a plate of warm cornbread in front of her. "You did good today." She smiled tiredly. "I'm not sure it felt like it, but it looked like it," he said. "And sometimes, that's enough to give the next person courage." "Nah." She took a bite, closed her eyes, let the warmth settle her nerves. Tomorrow would bring more pushback, maybe even legal threats. But for now, the truth had won one more round. Tuesday, 9:15 a.m., Lockhart Group. The building buzzed with something different that morning. Not gossip, not scandal, but anticipation. Employees moved with a certain alertness, as if waiting for a shoe to drop, or a revolution to begin. Maya entered through the main lobby, holding her coffee tight, nodding at the receptionist who smiled wider than usual. Even security gave her a respectful glance. The climate had shifted. She wasn't just the whisper everyone feared anymore, she was the name they looked to when the air got heavy. Inside her temporary office, her inbox held a short message from Graham. Subject, urgent meeting. Body, 10 a.m., top floor, just you and me. Please come. No emojis, no greetings, no fluff. That alone told her something was off. She grabbed her notebook, straightened her blazer, and headed to the elevator. 10 a.m., Lockhart private conference room. Graham stood at the window, overlooking the city below. He didn't turn around when she entered. I was expecting a coffee, she said, half joking. He finally looked at her, eyes tired, face lined with something heavier than usual. You've had a hell of a week. You too, she said, settling into a seat. So what's this about? He exhaled. I just got a call from an anonymous source. They say Clarissa's preparing a legal motion. Defamation. Harassment. Maybe even a restraining order. Maya blinked. You're kidding. I wish I were, he said. She's framing this entire cultural audit as a campaign of personal destruction. She claims you're leveraging internal access to destroy her reputation. Maya shook her head. That's not even close to true. I haven't touched any of her private files. No. I know, Graham said. But public perception doesn't rely on facts. It relies on headlines. She's hiring a media firm to spin this. So, what do you want me to do? He hesitated. Stop the investigation. Silence, thick and cold. Maya sat back, crossing her arms. No. Maya, no, she repeated firmer. If I stop now, it tells every woman in this building, every employee who trusted me with their story that the rules never changed. That power still wins. Graham ran a hand through his hair. She's still my wife. This could get ugly. It already is. They locked eyes. For a moment, Graham saw her not as an employee, not even as a consultant, but as a force. She wasn't angry. She was resolute. And something about that scared him and moved him. I'm not asking you to protect me, she said softly, but I'm asking you not to stop me. He looked down, then nodded slowly. All right, but if this escalates, I'll need to testify. I'll need to admit what I saw that night at the gala. Then do it, Maya said. Tell the truth. He managed to smile. You make that sound so simple. It is. People just complicate it when it costs them something. 11 to 24 a.m. HR wing. Maya returned to her desk to find a sealed envelope waiting for her. No name, no label, just red, written in large red pen. She opened it carefully. Inside was a single photograph, old and grainy, clearly taken with a telephoto lens. It showed her walking into a shelter 4 years ago, carrying a child. On the back, someone had written, "You sure you want people digging into your past, sweetheart?" She stared at it, heart steady,